Welcome, everyone, to SI Media with Jimmy Traina. Thank you so much for listening. We have a regular on the show today, Andrew Marchand, who covers everything sports media for The Athletic, formerly the New York Post, joins the program to talk about all the latest with the NBA's future television deals with NBC, ESPN, and Amazon, what it means for TNT and Warner Brothers Discovery, what's happening with Charles Barkley, who the NBC, NBA broadcasters could possibly be. We get into ESPN looking like they may need another lead NBA analyst if JJ Redick takes the Lakers job. Get into the Pat McAfee comments about Caitlin Clark and the whole discourse around Caitlin Clark. And we finish up with some thoughts about Tom Brady and Fox. And then obviously we have Sal Licata joining me for our Traina Thoughts segment. Before we get to it, just a reminder, if you missed last week's episode, check out in the archives the show with Charles Barkley. He was on last week. Kevin Harlan from TNT was on 2 weeks ago. Mike North from the NFL, who makes the NFL schedule, was on 3 weeks ago. And Katie Nolan was on 4 weeks ago. We broke down the Tom Brady roast. So Barkley, Harlan, Mike North, Katie Nolan, all recent guests. Go into the archives, give it a listen, and rate and review on Apple if you can. We do, in the Traina Thoughts segment with Sal, we read the latest Apple reviews. So if you want your review read, go leave one on Apple. All right, let's get to it. Andrew Marchand on a whole bunch of sports media news, followed by Sal Licata and Traina Thoughts, all right here, right now on SI Media with Jimmy Traina. All right, joining me now, it's been a while, but he is an SI Media podcast regular. He's not at the New York Post anymore. He is at The Athletic, but doing the same stuff pretty much. And he's the man who breaks pretty much all the sports media news, Andrew Marchand. Andrew, how's it going?
I'm doing well. Thanks, Jimmy.
I think first time, since you've been at The Athletic that you're on this pod, right?
I think so. Yeah, we've tried a couple of times. It's been a little bit hectic, but here we are.
Yeah, you've blown me off many times.
Yeah, I mean, rumor has it I might not have been your first choice for this week, from what I'm hearing, according to sources.
Might have been someone else. Sources. All right, let's get into a whole bunch of sports media things. Let's start with the NBA. What you've been in on this, others have been in on this. When is this? When are we going to have an official deal? Because every week, everyone knows it's going to be NBC and Amazon and ESPN, and there's the WBD can match, they won't match. It's not going to work out. It's over for TNT. But where is the finish line? Because we've had the same reports now for a month. It's getting a little annoying.
Yeah, I mean, if you go back a couple of months ago, I think it was late April, first John Orand said ESPN had a framework agreement for their deal. Then I said Amazon has a framework agreement for their deal, leaving it up to NBC and Turner. And then, there's that's where it's been, right? And now NBC is the NBA's preferred third party, and they are getting the paperwork all together. And then, I think it's going to be those three. But as a reporter, I would say, it's been clear. David Zaslav, the chairman of WBD, has said that they have matching rights. Could they try to invoke those for the Amazon deal or the NBC deal? I mean, I don't think we can say that's out of the question. Now, the NBA prefers three partners. I think they'll stay with three partners. Could they carve out a fourth package using regional sports network games because of the world changing, going more to streaming? There's requirements and contracts that you don't have as much as you once did. So you add all that in, you can't say it's a done deal. The next big story is really that WBD is out. Right. If that happens. So that's really the next. But we've kind of been spinning the wheels. I've been doing this a long time. So you get the reports, then you get the re-reports, then you get the re-reports of the re-reports. And so that's kind of where we are. I was told, I've looked into it recently, and the WSJ story the other day, said couple weeks. That's what I've been told. So that's why I haven't written anything, because nothing really's changed. But that's where it stands. So it does look like it will be those three. I wouldn't say that it's official though. By any means.
Yeah, I just thought, I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry. I just thought in my head they would never do anything official during the NBA Finals. They'll wait till that's over, I would assume, right? They're not going to want to distract. When it's official that TNT's out, it's going to be a big story.
It is. So, and also what's going to happen is is most likely is that when they have all the paperwork agreements, then Warner Brothers Discovery gets to
Right.
look at them. And then they have 5 days to decide if they're going to match. There's a disagreement between if they can match. It doesn't, from my layman's point of view, I would say they're not the similar deals, but I'm not a lawyer. I don't know the words exactly in the contracts. And so, there's a chance that it gets extended. There's a chance that Warner Brothers Discovery could sue. There's still a lot of factors in play that we don't yet know.
Maybe I'm wrong on this. The vibe to me is very strong that clearly the NBA wants to get in bed with NBC, and they don't care if Turner, who's had the NBA since 1984, is out. And in the Wall Street Journal report that came out Wednesday, they're going to put NBC is going to get 100 games, and they're going to put 50 on Peacock. Warner Brothers can't compete with that because all they have is TNT and Turner. They're going to put exclusive games on Max.
I mean, you could. Look, you start getting into this, it doesn't seem like apples to apples. Right. That's where I think that there would be some discrepancy. And the $2.5 billion number that NBC's paying is a huge number. And part of that does seem the calculus is that it hurts TNT in terms of their cable rights. NBC Universal is owned by Comcast. And so, do they make some money up on fees that they can, don't have to, that they won't incur with TNT if TNT can't demand the same price? It's about $3 per person, subscriber. And so, that's where you look at it all. It's a big number. And I think, I wrote, I think it was early May about David Zaslav a couple years ago. He said, we don't really need the NBA. We don't have to have the NBA. And now, the NBA did not like that. And the decision, now he has a decision. He can show that, we didn't actually need it. We got a plan going forward, and we want to spend that kind of money for the NBA.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask you too. I mean, at the end of the day, everything in this business is about money, but I would love to know what percentage the Zaslav contracts or comments are responsible for Warner Brothers Discovery probably losing the NBA. I mean, if they blew him out of the water with some monetary offer, then the NBA is going to get in bed with Warner. But if they're competitive, if the offers are comparable, and then he makes those comments, obviously, Charles Barkley has said he doesn't know for sure that it pissed off Adam Silver, but he's like, it pissed off Adam Silver. I mean, I don't know if Charles has proof of that, but it's just, I don't understand. Even if Zaslav made those comments, like to just cut out this entity that's been with you for 30 years, something like just feels off about it to me. I don't know what it is.
Well, I think you nailed it. At the end of the day, it's about the financials. If Warner Brothers Discovery just stepped up, there's different views. I've heard, that $2.3 billion number, that range, maybe you get to 2.5 in that exclusive window that they could have had a deal. So, that's a strike against saying Zaslav's comments were, end all be all. So I don't think like there's no deal to be done. But I do think when you're an incumbent, it hurts you. They have an advantage as an incumbent. There's a lot of things that help you in terms of your relationships in theory, in terms of how you're tied in with each other. Warner Brothers Discovery runs NBA TV, for example. And so I do think when you say like we don't need the NBA, these leagues have humongous egos. In terms of the top people and what they think of the league and how they're treated, and rightfully so in a lot of respects. You look at professional leagues after the NFL, you'd probably have to argue the NBA is the biggest. Baseball's right there, but I'd say the NBA's too. So I don't think those went over well, and that hurts you. So it's like it's a strike against. It's not two strikes against, but it's probably a strike against, and it allows NBC, I do think, to get in there and it helped them.
Right. Now, what do you make of Barkley saying on this podcast last week that he's only met David Zaslav twice? Do you think that sort of tells this story adds to the story of David Zaslav maybe not, I don't know if respect's the right word, but valuing the NBA in terms of the package and in terms of his talent? I mean, I thought a pretty damning revelation.
in terms of it having any, effect on the deal getting
Right.
done, I don't really, I don't
Yeah.
really think that has anything to
It
do
just
with
paints
it.
a bigger picture of Zaslav, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I pointed out in my column, that I talked about with Zaslav, he is shown on air when they did like Celebrity Row
Right.
for
Right.
TNT. Those things
Right.
aren't coincidences, right? When it's
Right.
Tracy Morgan and whoever else was there for, the Nick Ben Stiller, et cetera. And then it's David Zaslav. When ESPN did their Celebrity Row, they didn't show David Zaslav. So
Right.
I think that's noticed that he's being shown on screen in those circumstances. And yeah, you would think you'd want to have a little bit more of a relationship. I think they've been a little cavalier. Like I think when there's an ultimate rewriting of this history of what happened, Zaslav's comments, the kind of not like I don't know. Again, it's not done yet, and there's a lot of relationships between TNT people and the NBA. Great relationships, but at the top, you have Zaslav. You have a new chairman of WBD Sports and Louis Silberwasser. And so the relationships really aren't as ingrained as they once were
Right.
when you had the Lenny Daniels, and the David Levy's, the former executives who had really worked with the NBA for years and years. And if they were in charge, there might be a different outcome.
For the average sports fan, they want to know, can NBC or Amazon take all four inside the NBA hosts? I think if it happened, the show still wouldn't be the same, but I don't even think there's a chance it could happen. What's your analysis of, is there any chance the
Thursday,
four?
I'm going to give you a little, but Thursday, Richard Deitch have a Q&A going to the NBA Finals where I get a little bit deeper into this stuff, but I think there's a chance. Like it's for, and I will say like this isn't earth-shattering too, even though it's in this piece on The Athletic. You should subscribe. They're all going to be interested. Amazon, NBC, ESPN. So they're all going to be interested.
Well, wait, can you see a scenario where ESPN would take all four?
I mean, look, ESPN, I think there'll be some interest once there's competition. Again, I'm not saying, look, I want to make it clear because, this stuff gets, I'm not reporting that they're definitely going to have, I would think they're definitely going to have interest in Charles Barkley. Okay.
Well, right. I'm not talking about that. I'm about all four together.
But then when you start going, okay,
I'm just talking about all four together. That's it.
Yes. But I think Amazon, NBC very well are going to have interest in all four. Okay.
Right.
So then ESPN sits back there. ESPN and Jimmy Pitaro have been collecting free agents like your favorite baseball team, the Yankees, Joe Buck, Troy Aikman, etc. Peyton Manning, is probably the highest paid guy in all of sports media. And do they say, all right, why don't we just go get the best show, right? Why don't we just, people will love this, we'll recreate it. There is already a relationship that we saw with the college football playoff between the two entities where ESPN is producing the shows for the games for Warner Brothers. So again, I'm not saying that's gonna happen. I just don't think it's not out of the realm of possibility, the ESPN factor. I think all three will be interested if Warner Brothers loses the rights.
Yeah. Well, the ESPN, the reason why I wouldn't think the ESPN thing is even a possibility is I don't think Ernie Johnson would go to ESPN, number one. And number two, then you have to blow Stephen A. Smith out of that show. And he's not going to take that laying down.
But is there something you can do? Yeah. But is there something you can do? Like they all live in Atlanta. I think Shaq lives outside Atlanta too. Kenny, Ernie, Charles. Do they want to move? Is it easier to do a show out of, someplace either at where, Warner Brothers Discovery is now or again, I'm not saying that's going to happen. But I do think I think anybody saying like it's done, that this isn't, I think it definitely has a chance to happen. The issue is that they all get paid different amounts of money. And so someone blows Charles out of the water, let's say in ESPN, and they don't want everyone else. Happen. Right. Yeah, and they don't want, they don't need everyone else. We'll just take Barkley. Because it gets expensive.
I think what helps Charles here is that by Ernie Johnson, if you believe the reports, Ernie Johnson's staying with Turner. He does not want to leave. Mm-hmm. If that's the case, then Charles has that as an excuse. Like, okay, well, he told me the first time I had him on the pod, he's only doing the show with Ernie Johnson. If Ernie Johnson's not there, he doesn't want to do it. He didn't really
I mean, like you
Shaq
sort of
and
recreate the show. It's not you don't just
right.
do Shaq Kenny and a new
So if Freddie
host.
Johnson declares I'm staying with Turner, then Charles is like, okay, well now I'm available, and
Yeah.
then that bidding war will be unlike anything we've seen before. I think it would even be bigger than the Romo bidding war.
Yeah, I don't think so.
No,
I mean, I think no. I mean, he's gonna get big money. I mean, I reported that his contract right now is 10 years and approaching 200 million. In that range. Like, I'm not. I don't know the exact number, but I would think it's that Romo money range, the 180 million. I don't know the exact number. Let me make that clear. Um, but I think he gets like maybe like that. Like, I don't
right,
know why it's gonna like get into like the 25-30 million a year thing. I don't maybe. I mean, again,
right.
we've learned, right? The one thing I think I've been on top of it, and I appreciate your kind words at the beginning, but I will say when I heard $375 million over 10 years for Tom Brady, I was like, oh my God. When I originally heard 180 million for 10 years for Tony Romo, I was like, wow, I wasn't expecting that, even though, at that point I kept writing how much, that it kept going up and up.
Right.
So I think anything's possible. I just don't know if, I don't know if he's
Yeah.
getting 37 and a half
Well,
a year or something like that.
I don't know if he was being serious or if he was kidding around, but when Barkley was on last week, he talked about like he doesn't want to work that much. Like if the ESPN thing was like, okay, we'll give you whatever it is, 20 million a year or whatever. But we need you on first take sometimes and we need you on get up
Yeah,
sometimes. Like Charles said, like, I'm not doing any of that stuff. So I don't now again, that could be
but we've seen that they had
negotiating.
it.
Right.
They've done that though, because
Right.
I was when Romo was maybe going to go to ESPN, I was so ready to write the Romo rules because he wasn't going to do all that stuff.
Right.
Aikman doesn't do all that
Right. I
stuff.
was gonna say
Joe
Troy
Buck,
hasn't done it. Yeah.
yeah, Joe Buck doesn't do all that stuff. So, and Charles does like to go on some shows. Like, it's
Yeah.
not like he doesn't talk. I mean,
Yeah.
I was texting with somebody and I love Charles. Like, I think he's the best ever. But and it is worth reporting on, but he talks about it so much that it's hard to have, my job is trying to have stuff that nobody else has. He just says everything publicly. Even once
Right.
when I called him up and he went on Cleveland radio, it's like I'm doing a story. And I wasn't even doing a story, but it was kind of funny. He went on Cleveland
Yeah.
radio and mentioned me and said that. But so yeah, it's gonna be fascinating for sure.
So you wrote something, I think this week about, or maybe it was just a tweet and you didn't write a column, but you would, if you had a guess, you don't know this, obviously it's the long, but if you had a guess, you think Tirico would be NBC's lead NBA play-by-play guy. Do you just think because he's in-house, he's been doing it so long, he's respected, like, I'm thinking about like a guy like Kevin Harlan. NBC wouldn't want to dabble there. I mean, obviously, then he could go to Amazon. But what do you give me? Why you think it's going to be Tirico?
I mean, Chirico's done high level NBA. I mean,
Right.
I think he did the NBA finals on radio at ESPN. He was knocking on the doors, the number two, and might have ended up doing the finals. There was a time where Breen might have been on a little bit of thin ice where Tirico might have moved in there. And, then the Van Gundy, Mark Jackson team with Breen became great. And so that went out the door. And so I think Tirico would want it. I think he's their new Costas of NBC. So I think if he wants it, he gets it, which I think he wants it. And so I'd be very surprised if he's not their number one guy.
They'd still need a number one, I guess, while football's going on. September, October, November.
I mean, like,
December,
look,
January.
we don't know. First off, most of these places don't really care as much about the regular season. This
Right.
is all about the postseason.
Right.
So if you look at those Tuesday, and let's say it is Tuesday, Sunday, the Sunday games wouldn't start till after
Right.
football. So that makes it pretty obvious that maybe Tirico just moves in on the Sunday games, and then you have Noah Eagle on the Tuesday games. Maybe they have a third person as well. And so that seems pretty like that works out pretty seamlessly for them.
So based on what you're saying, it would be more likely that Amazon would pick up a lot of the Turner guys than NBC.
Yeah, I think so. Like, I think you look
Harlan,
at
Brian Anderson.
I don't know,
Probably
Brian Eagle. Iron Eagle, I would say, would be somebody who I've mentioned,
right.
when we did it after I had the Amazon story back in April, mentioned Iron Eagle and Amazon. I think they like him a lot. And so, and that's where it gets interesting for ESPN. You talk about the coverage. NBC is going to go in there. Tirico is an established, he's one of the best, right? Noah Eagles, probably one of the, in terms of young guys in their 20s, is probably the fastest rising young play-by-player in their 20s. And then let's say Amazon gets Ian Eagle to do their top games. It's going to be pretty formidable. Like, obviously, they're going to have to figure out the analysts and all that other stuff.
Right.
Excuse me, but that's going to put pressure on ESPN a little bit, and especially with their finals team in flux, they're gonna, I think, need to probably step up to, they've always sort of not been able to get the NBA. They
Right.
had the actual booth right with Breen,
Right.
Van Gundy, and Jags, and that's why it was so
Right.
shocking when they're part of the layoffs.
The NBA is
But
interesting in that I feel like there's so many great play-by-play people, but the analysts, there is a serious lack of great analysts in the NBA.
yeah, I'd say Van Gundy
And the
was
best one isn't working. Right.
Yeah, so Van Gundy was the guy.
Yeah. Stan's good.
Stan's good. All the Van Gundys. Outside Van Gundys.
Well, think about it, because you have the
Jamal Crawford
ex-players,
shown some
but the
potential.
ex-players are not going to say anything negative about the players. The coaches will. So I think coaches make for better analysts than ex-players in the NBA.
Yeah, I thought Chris Webber could have been better than Marv is the best ever play-by-play guy, NBA
Mhm.
play-by-play guy, but at the end wasn't as good, and I think that was hard for Webber to shine. I don't know if Webber was great, with everything, around the, behind the scenes and all that stuff, but I thought he had potential to be better than his perception.
I would love to see Harlan go to ESPN, because then they could use him on multiple things. They could use him on the NBA. They could use him on college football. They could use him, on a bunch of different sports.
But it's hard for him to do college football if he's doing CBS NFL.
He'd have to leave CBS. That would be.
Oh, you want him leaving CBS?
Well, I don't. I mean,
I mean,
I don't know
Harlan's
if I want that,
64, right? Like,
yeah.
I mean, I think 64. Like, I don't know if, he does the Westwood One,
Yeah,
does the Super Bowl. I mean, he has a pretty busy schedule as it is.
that's true. That's true. Since you mentioned it, let's transition. Is there anything else about this whole about the NBA thing we need to? And I think we covered inside the
Yeah,
NBA.
you
We
nailed it
covered
pretty good. Yeah, you
Turner,
did pretty good.
Barkley.
We didn't mention, the ESPN crew. I've written this, JJ Redick.
Well, that's when I said let's transition, because I was going to say
transition.
So now the reports are, it looks like, could maybe not happen, but it looks like Redick to the Lakers. So ESPN fires Van Gundy. They say because they thought he wanted to get back into coaching, but they really fired him because the NBA complained that he would crush the refs in the league. Then they bring in Doc Rivers, and one of the dumbest moves I've ever seen, when your excuse is the guy wants to go back into coaching on Van Gundy. So then, of course, Doc Rivers goes back into coaching, elevate Redick, and now Redick could leave to go into coaching. So what the hell?
And this is a record. So I'm the one who reported that ESPN, part of their reasoning was that they're worried Van Gundy was going to go back into coaching. They've never said that on the record. It's 100% accurate, and the sourcing's great. But just for the record, because I know a lot of people cite that. So yeah, first off with Doc, I think ESPN was very upset about that he left. He'd signed a 3-year deal. He guaranteed that he was going to stay because there were, everyone, including someone like me who covers media, knew he was going to go back to coaching. You could argue with Giannis in Milwaukee, that's such an opportunity that he had to take it, but it was a bad look. They just, made this new crew. They felt good about it. I didn't think it was probably going to be as good. I always like to judge what you actually hear. Like, I don't like when people, decide on something, and you wouldn't want me to decide on your podcast or actually listening to it. I think Jimmy Traina, so the same thing. I like to actually even if I have obviously you formulate kind of some thoughts, but you want to hear what someone sounds like. So I thought it was not a bad plan in terms of Rivers and Doris, with Breen. But now you have Redick comes in, and Charlotte first wants to interview him, and now the Lakers. Shams reported that they're zeroing in on Redick, and so it does seem like that's where it's heading. It hasn't happened yet. So they're gonna have to reconfigure and figure out that booth again. So it's like you're 12 months. In the last 12 months, you're gonna have 3 booths after it was your best booth that you had. excluding, Buck and Aikman, who they had to pay a boatload of money to bring in. But I would say their best homegrown booth that they've had probably in every sport. Like, I mean, the Showman combos in college hoops, are very good as well. But the other sports, that was their best homegrown, team.
I don't know if he'd ever show it because he's like the nicest guy in sports media, but you think Breen's frustrated a little bit? I mean, he had this thing going with Van Gundy and Jackson for so long, and now it's, a circus.
Yeah, I would say there's some frustration. I did a story when I was still at the Post after they let go, and he was very heartbroken about the fact that Van Gundy and Mark were let go. And so, yeah, I think there's some frustration. And I think if you look at it, I think, like Joe Buck's situation when when they left, one of the things that Joe Buck wanted, he liked working with Aikman. He didn't want to
Right.
break in somebody again. And so, if it were Brady, maybe he would have. But I think, the established play-by-player doesn't necessarily want that to happen.
Could you envision any scenario next year if Reddick does go to the Lakers where it's just Breen and Doris, or it's gonna be three people no matter what?
I think that's possible.
Hmm.
I don't think it's, I wouldn't say that's out of the question. I don't know how long Doris Burke wants to, call games.
Hmm.
She's, so I think they're going to have some decisions to make over the next
Right.
coming years. Like, I don't,
Right.
like, I think we're in a time of flux and, in terms of in terms of what they are doing. They had a plan, they brought in Doc, they brought in Doors, and then they had Rucco, Richard Jefferson, and Reddick as their number two team kind of in waiting, even though, like, I don't think Breen's going anywhere for a while. He
Right.
has 5 years left.
The crazy thing is, the guy who would become available if everything plays out the way it's supposed to is Stan Van Gundy. But I don't think Stan and ESPN are going to be signing any
No,
deals
no, no.
together. No.
He just ripped them.
Yeah.
And
There's the perfect replacement.
yeah,
Not
Stan
going to
would be
happen.
good.
Yeah.
Legler is someone who they've always sort of buried down on the bench. I wrote a few years ago how good he was, and I feel like he did the game. After they didn't really have the depth, and he does a game, he does great. I think in a three-man booth, maybe you could do something there, and you get like a stars. As a third person, but they don't have that much depth. That's an issue for them. Like, I think they should be. I am always disappointed in terms of the depth that, ESPN creates. I just
Yeah.
feel like they have, especially if young people, like they do, they've built up some people. They've also let Fox just take like a lot of their, Adam Amines, Jason Benetti, Joe Davis. I mean, those are all like ESPN were the farm teams for three really good young play-by-players that now are at
Right.
Fox. So, they have some people, but yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, though, the play-by-play is fine. It's the analysts in the NBA where there's a major dearth.
But I would say the
Um,
play-by-play guy, though, is the one who needs to make the analysts really good. I think that's where Ian Eagle's the best. Like,
right.
if you look at the Nets over the years, like almost every one of their analysts
Oh,
have
yeah.
become stars and what
Yeah.
they've done. John Filippelli, who heads up that network, and Frank DeGrace is their producer. I mean, that place is just a farm system. If you look at like all this basically, between Iron Eagle, now No Eagle, Ruco, I mean, it just goes on and on.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Let's move on to the next topic. I'm going to do something that I'm supposedly not allowed to do because I don't follow or watch the NBA, WNBA, but I'm going to talk about the WNBA. I hope I don't get thrown in jail. I know this is a big no-no because you have to pass a history test in order to discuss the WNBA.
That's not my rule.
That's not your rule.
My rule is,
Yeah.
well, the world is proof. I've been on Twitter. You don't need to know about anything to talk about anything.
I mean, people have lost their minds. It's shocking. Let's I guess start with McAfee
Okay.
because you wrote about it.
Mm-hmm.
I thought you went after him fairly hard, and I feel like I must be a monster because I got what Pat was trying to do. Now, obviously, Pat should not have said what he said. Clearly, you just do not go on ESPN and say that. But I got right away that Pat was sort of saying, what the WNBA players were thinking about Caitlin Clark, because the woman who gave her the cheap shot foul called her a bitch right before the foul. So I was like, okay, not good to say, got what he was doing. But of course it had to, basically like, let's burn down the Pat McAfee show was the response to that. Let's start with this. Did you get any insight of the response inside of Bristol and ESPN about McAfee making that comment?
I mean, I think initially they wanted to defend it. And then, I think there was a conversation after the show and McAfee apologized, which to his credit, like so the mistake is not to admit your mistake, and he felt bad about it. The question, did he learn from it? He went on WWE and kind of referenced it again. So,
well, that's not true. Just so everyone knows, because I saw like awful announcing make a. So the wrestler that Braun Strowman, for the last like 4 weeks, when that guy's comes out, he calls him a big son of a bitch.
But he dropped a white in there as well.
No, I thought he just called him a son of a bitch.
I'm pretty sure he dropped a.
Okay.
Go back to the videotape. I think he dropped the word white as well as a descriptor. Whatever. I mean, look, I'm not.
Then then he's that's.
And I'm not a big let's get on every word they say. Like I judge intent. Like I think if you read my column, I make it clear that I don't think McAfee's intent was bad. So that's like very important to me. I think we live in a world now, it's very gotcha. And I'm not a fan of that. I try not to do it too much. Unless, in this circumstance, I thought it was worthy of a column because you can't, like you just said, you're kind of on the other side of it, but like, you can't say white B word on ESPN. This isn't you and your boys talking. You're on national TV, and you also have to. And Pat's very smart. Like he's adroit at a lot of social media and all this. Like Pat does not deserve to be fired or anything like that to happen in this case, in my opinion.
Well, not also the take like ESPN fired so many people to pay Pat McAfee.
Yeah, that one has nothing to do with the other. Number one. Number two is. But the issue I would say is that you need to understand that we also live in like a social media world, and Pat understands it perfectly. So what's going to get cut is that quote, and context doesn't get lost, and that's not fair. Like, right, when you ask me, for example, I always say this to people, like when they're they the only thing I'm responsible for is what I write or say. Right, I'm not responsible for what the internet does with stories I have. I can't you're good about it. You're usually like, you get the things that, if you're like talking about one of my stories or whatever, you get them correct. But the internet has its, I've had I've had things dating back. I forgot about the Francesa thing where I said the thing with on this
300
podcast.
downloads.
Yeah, exactly. 300 downloads. Yeah. That caused a whole issue. I had a thing with Brady, with The Rock. And those are things like, none of those things I ever reported. If it was accurately aggregated or whatever, however it got to these people, that would have been a problem.
Right.
So, I guess when you're doing a show though, you need to be cognizant of that.
Yes.
And you just can't, I don't know. Like I said, my lead was if HR, you get a million videos if you work for ESPN or Disney, and you couldn't say that anywhere in the Disney kingdom. So, but it's okay to blast it over the airwaves of your network. And I get it. You could say he's a freelancer, it's his thing. Whatever. He was wrong, and he admitted he was wrong. So I think we were on the same page at the end of the day.
Yeah, for sure. I just, like you said, the social media machine changes it to where it's like, oh, Pat McAfee called her this. Okay, but I firmly believe he wouldn't have said that if the player who did the cheap shot on Caitlin Clark didn't call her that as she's delivering the cheap shot. I thought my take.
But he's the one who brought the race into it too. I
agree. Right.
That also adds to it.
100%.
Because if you just said the B word, again, like the problem with it also is that, and like even when I'm writing that column, these are new. Like when you get into race and you get into gender, it's very nuanced. It's not like, and he was doing sort of a clever little tongue-in-cheek sort of presentation. And so when you do that, it's hard to just, it's hard to, like his audience might have gotten it. And there are people, you included, I believe, who would just be like, chill out. But I don't think he gets to decide who's offended by the term white B word. Disney
Right.
finds that a word offensive, right? He's
Right.
on Disney's airwaves. And so I
Right.
don't really see, like, he apologized. So good for
Right.
him.
Right. Well, it's interesting because you say about, if you're going to bring up race, it's nuanced. And that, I guess, is what ultimately is the issue with the Caitlin Clark story, because race seems to be an element, but there's also just like facts. I don't know how you deny her popularity, and you can bring up TV ratings and attendance to back that up. But then there's, players in the past built the league, this and that. But she's the driving force right now at this moment. Nobody else. But you can't say that. It's very bizarre
I
to
think
me.
this is, look, I don't disagree with what you're saying there, but I do think that's what's lost in our conversation now, especially because of social media, is I think it's really important as a reporter or just as a person to know, to be cognizant of what you don't know. And so your experience from your point of view, from your upbringing, from your life, from being a white male, I'm a white male, is different than other people's
Right.
point of view. And so,
Right.
like, that doesn't make our point of view better, it makes it different, or their point of view better, it makes it different. And so you could see things, and even if you're like open-minded and you look at it, you might see things differently. And so I could see, if you're a player who's been in the WNBA forever, you're actually a better player than Caitlin Clark, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there hasn't been this attention on you. Now, I would argue personally that it's has not much to do with race why she's so popular. Like, I think if there was someone of a different race shooting 40 footers and making incredible passes, they would be just as popular. Or maybe not, maybe there's something there, but be very popular. And it would be a big deal, scoring 40 points, leading their team. And so I think it's the way she plays ultimately. That's
Mm-hmm.
the key. But I do think it's very important to understand other people's point of view, and not everyone's going to see it. And that's why it's a very nuanced discussion, and why a lot of people just kind of check out of it, because you got to be so careful what you say, because then all of a sudden you're on the wrong side of the mob.
Right. Well, and like you said, when we were discussing the McAfee angle of it, like, Caitlin Clark is also, in my opinion, a social media story. Because I'm just using myself as an example. I don't watch the NBA, WNBA. I don't follow it. I don't know anyone in it. Not my thing. Fine. But if I'm scrolling through Twitter on Saturday afternoon and every tweet in my feed is a video of this cheap shot, then I don't that's how it works these days. So like, this, who deserves credit to this, but right now she's the one getting all the attention. You may not like that she's getting all the attention, and you may not like that maybe others are getting snubbed, and I get that. But you can't deny she's the driving force right now, solely.
Yeah, 100%. Her ratings her games get rated way higher.
Right.
I think the team's not very good, but they had the number one pick, so that tells you that they weren't very good,
Right.
last season. So, she can't be a miracle worker. And so, yeah, look, I don't know. I go back to Michael Jordan, Isaiah Thomas. Like, that was a thing back in the day when Jordan became the biggest thing in the NBA, and Isaiah had people freeze him out of the
Mhm.
All-Star game. You imagine that story now. You didn't have the race element there, but like, that would be a big story. I think it's also I just think it's like social media is not a place for discussion. And that's where a lot of
Right.
these things happen. And
Right.
then there are people who want to just make everything about certain issues, on many sides. Like, it's not,
Right.
and so, and those voices usually get the loudest and the most attention. And so it becomes very divisive,
Right.
and having a nuanced discussion is hard to do.
Right. And I wrote this in my column on what day? Tuesday too. Like, you're dealing with someone too now. She's crossed over out of the sports world. She's also like like People Magazine covers her,
Hmm.
TMZ covers her. So she's going to get attention from people. It goes back to what I was saying at the start of this discussion in jest about, like, now there's backlash if you don't follow the NBA and you talk about Caitlin Clark. Like, give me a break. Like, this is sports. Everyone throws opinions out there about any kind of nonsense there is. You don't have to, I got a tweet from someone yesterday. Her name is Sarah Jane Gamelli. She's a WNBA staff writer for Ball is Life. And this is what she wrote to me off my column. Everyone is welcome to cover the NBA. Don't get it twisted. Educate yourself on the history of the league and those who paved the way. Knowing what's going on is key. Harmful or untrue stories damage the sport. Cover the sport you want to, not for personal gain. Well, that's not how, first of all, you don't have to take a history lesson on a sport to throw out a take on a cheap shot foul, number one. Number two, the fact that we have to, this is the WNBA. You have to have a history lesson and then don't try to use personal gain. People use personal gain in every sport. When someone takes a video of a dunk and they put it on Twitter, they're doing it for personal gain. When someone takes a video of an announcer having a meltdown and they put it on Twitter, that's a personal gain. So all of the Caitlin Clark discussion, if there's whether it's a cheap shot foul, whether it's a play, that's all for what the WNBA. We got to make different rules. But it's ridiculous.
Well, I would say for all of it though, context is important, right? I don't think you're arguing against context. But wait. I don't. Let me just, because I want to just be clear about the context. So after the cheap shot foul, a lot of it was the WNBA has always been physical. The WNBA has always had fouls like this. This has happened in the WNBA for years. Fine, no issue. That's still a cheap shot. One has nothing to do. You can have the context. Yeah, I agree.
That's all.
And then the woman from the Chicago Sky, after she wasn't. I mean, it made it very personal because then she said she wouldn't talk about Caitlin Clark.
Right.
And then she tweeted out, I think that she's only a jump shooter.
Right.
And then it seems like she's been on a bunch of teams when you learn more about her situation. And so, that is important context, but it doesn't it actually adds to the narrative that, that was on purpose and she was targeted.
Right.
And so, here's I don't know. I've always said this. I'm a soccer guy, as you know, and people always they want to make soccer bigger. And I'm always why do I care? So the players can make more money. Great. Good for them. I mean, I guess that's nice, but why do I care if MLS players make more money? And then all that happens is the times for these games get more inconvenient. It gets more expensive. I don't really see why I care. And I get it. I get it at some level but the one thing that I would say to the media in general, this goes for all sports. We're not on the team. Right. We cover the sports. I don't care if you like the WNBA. It's not our job to root for the WNBA, and our job is to cover the WNBA. And I would argue it's better for the league if it's covered and not having cheerleaders on the side rooting for it every second, because I find that in some regards patronizing. And also, secondly, I just don't think it serves the purposes. They should be treated fairly. That's what we all should do with all the leagues, but we should cover them, not root for them. Even if you've been a long-time supporter of the WNBA, that's not your job if you're covering it.
I was going to say, at the end of the day, isn't this all good for the league anyway, that everyone's talking, whether you
100%.
Of course.
There's much better chance you're going to stop at a WNBA game. This is great for the league. And it's the more we know about different players and different, the Sky's on. All right, they have Angel Reese. They have, it's just that's a big win for the WNBA. Yeah. Now, I will say the WNBA, I don't know how this happened, but the fact that she's played Caitlin Clark's team has played 10 games or 20 games, or wherever they've played, and other teams have played half as many games, and I presume that's for team purposes, is ridiculous. I don't think they're doing any, and you're just going in from the, there's some, I don't know if they've put her in the best spots.
Now, let me ask you this question, because I don't follow any of this, so I'm just curious. I'm just going by buzz and what I see on Twitter. Those are my only two things I'm going. For me, it seemed like there was a lot more buzz and a lot more talk about Caitlin Clark during the women's NCAA tournament than her WNBA games. Is that just because the NCAA tournament is this monster event in the country? Because I know the WNBA is having better ratings because of her now, But I'm just talking, like I said, what I see on Twitter, the amount of tweets and the buzz, her WNBA career doesn't seem anything near like what it was at Iowa.
Well, I think number one, when you talk about athletes, it all comes down to this, and that's at the end of the day, does your team have more points than the other team? Right? That's at the end of the day. They're 2-10, I think, as we speak. Maybe I said 20 games, it must be more like 12. But anyways, they're not good, right? They lose every game. And at Iowa, they were number one seed in their region, but it wasn't definite that they were going to make it to the championship, and they did.
Right.
And she kept coming through, and was it the semifinal game where she had like 18 in the first quarter?
I don't know.
And yeah, so yeah, and I think there's something with the college game as opposed to
Right.
But like if you were to say, if you're the WNBA, is this the best scenario so far? It's not. The best scenario would be they're 10-2 and she's averaging 30 a game.
Right.
And we would all be, it's still appointment viewing to see her, but it's not, they're 5-20.
Right.
It's not going to be, I think the ratings will go down. It'll be like, all right, they're not.
Right, but before you came on, I just wanted to look up like the WNBA ratings, and I wanted to look up something specific. What I saw was the highest rated Caitlin Clark game in the WNBA. She drew like a little over 2 million for a game on CBS. The next highest rated, well, I don't know if it was on CBS. I shouldn't say that. I don't know that. It was over 2 million. I don't know what network. And then the next highest rated WNBA game, not involving Caitlin Clark and her team, the highest rated was 700,000 for a game that was on CBS. So I don't know how anyone says the ratings increase or attendance increase is not solely because of her. That's my only.
It is, and
right.
But other players don't necessarily like that.
Well,
right?
Of course,
you know
of
what
course,
I mean?
they don't have to like it, right? They shouldn't like it.
Better, right? And they're better players. They're on better teams, and she's getting all the attention, and people are liking it. And then you get into all these discussions about why that is. And so, I guess what's hard about the discussions is that people sound like they're defending Caitlin Clark, and like, I don't know what she's done wrong, really, right? Like,
right. Well, you know what I think she's done wrong from what I can tell. Again, I don't follow it, but I would know if it happened. I think what pisses people off, even a lot of it, is she doesn't take the bait. Like,
yeah,
I haven't seen her heard of her bashing anyone or speaking out against anyone on the court. I haven't seen her. I don't know. Like get into it. Maybe she has. I don't know. But
no, not really. But yeah, you're right. Yeah. She gets, she complains to the refs a lot, but all the stars in every sport.
Who doesn't complain to the refs? Yeah.
So, but she doesn't seem to get into it. She did say she's getting slammed. But yeah.
I wonder if her mentality is she's making all this money, so she better just shut up and, take the shit while they're giving it to her.
I think it's pretty safe to say she's an elite athlete, right? Like that's
see, I don't know that because I don't watch it, so I don't know that. I
mean athlete, an elite player. Like, look, it's going to be interesting. I don't know where this stands exactly, but the Olympic team, will she be on it? NBC is probably like, yeah, she's on it. She's got to be on it. We want her in the game. That's going to help ratings. And if you ask me, if you got a brain in your head, give me a little Francesa. Something, you got to put her on the team. Like, I don't see why you would not have Caitlin Clark on the team.
Well, how many players are on the Olympic team?
I would think 12.
Is she one of the 12 best players?
I mean, I think you make the argument. Christian Laettner was on the dream team. I don't know. I just think for the good of the sport.
For TV ratings, right, of course.
But also, I don't know. If you're constructing a team, right?
Right.
I don't know if anybody shoots it. Like, again, I don't have the WNBA history that you're supposed to take, I guess, either. So I can't tell you who the best 12 players are. I know that her numbers as a rookie. Now, she had a terrible game the other night, but it's been really good. Like, she's been good. She's played well. Her team's not good.
Right. She's on a bad team. Right.
If you watch the games and, you know basketball at all, you could tell the team's not good.
All right. Let's wrap it up with this. Where is the Andrew Marchand Tom Brady meter at on June 5th?
It's high, 95%.
95. Oh my God.
Where are you at? You got 100?
I was at 100 from day one.
All right. Well, we'll see. I'm at
90.
95.
What could happen for that other 5%?
Well, look, I want to be clear. You're asking me a question. You want me to go all the way to 100? I'll go to 90. You want me to go to 99? I'll go 99. You want me to go 99? There's the ownership.
I want you to go with what's accurate.
Yeah, well, look, he's training for it. They're doing practice games. He's doing the things that you would do to really put your head into it. From all reports that I've gotten from talking with people, he's really into it. That's not unexpected. We know the guy's work ethic. We know what they're paying him. We know the spotlight he's going to be under. It's going to be an event. I mean, it's going to be an event, that first game.
Oh, absolutely.
Window is going to be Tom Brady. Everyone is going to have an opinion about him. And that's a lot. I think that one thing that's always interesting is that you or I would be better positioned in terms of understanding what a broadcast is than Tom Brady. Most of these guys do not watch the games like we do. Right? They're players. They want to play in the Super Bowl. They don't want to commentate the Super Bowl. Like, they'll do it, especially for a lot of money, but they're not. So when they go into the booth, it's not like, all right, this is what you do. I've watched a million games. You and I would not be able to see the field like Tom Brady, obviously, like not even in his hemisphere. But so he's got to learn those mechanics, how you get in, how you get out. What am I supposed to be saying? What should I be looking for? How many points? How much do I need to dumb this down so Jimmy Traina and I can, can
I don't want him to do that, but.
Well, you do it a degree. Like the level, having been covered baseball, the level that these guys can talk about this stuff and the terminology is not normal. Yes, you don't want him to dumb it down. You want him to make the complicated simple. That's the job. The job is to go from what's in that brain to his mouth, make the complicated simple, and so you and I can understand it. And I think, to me, it's not that hard to do in a lot of respects. I can give some examples, but that's what he needs to do.
This just came in my head when you're talking about Brady. We know Belichick's going to do McAfee and the Manning cast. Do we see him with like a network on a Sunday with like Fox or CBS?
No Belichick on that.
Okay, just making sure. All right, let's talk about you for 1 minute. So are you enjoying The Athletic?
Yeah, I do. It's been good. I feel, look, I love the Post. You know that.
I do miss you breaking New York stories.
I've broken some, though. I had the ESPN New York Jets story. I'll break them if they're there. I haven't really been. I had the Sterling story.
Right. That's true. I thought that was almost more national because, like I like when you would get into the minutia of like, ESPN versus the Fan and all that stuff.
But the thing is, though, that kind of went out with me because now they have no ratings at ESPN New York. And I will touch on that for sure. We do local, so I hear you. I don't know. But I've done it already, and like I don't think New York is not off limits.
Yeah. And why don't you have a podcast yet?
It's in progress.
Are you going to do it with Deitch?
I'm not going to be doing it with Deitch.
Oh, all right.
You wanted that?
I don't know. Maybe. I don't know how I would feel about that. Would you do it solo or with someone else? You don't have to tell me who. I just want to know if it's.
I did a practice show the other day.
Solo or with someone else?
No, with someone else.
At The Athletic?
You said I don't have to tell you. Look at you. Do you have that? I don't think you would guess the person, quite honestly.
It's not Richard Deitch and it's not John Oran.
No.
Okay.
And it's not close. I'm still working on everything. I'm working on it.
Got it. Test show. It's like you're an NFL announcer. Jeez.
Well, you got to see how it sounds.
Yeah.
You got to see how it sounds. You don't just turn on the mic. Got to get all the particulars down. It's a little. Yeah. It's not as simple.
You get a lot of people miss the Marchand and Oran podcast, right?
Yeah, we got a lot of feedback that people did like that podcast. John went to Puck, took his rights with him.
Oh, and you went to The Athletic. Can't put it all on John.
He went to Puck first.
Did he?
Yes.
Is that what happened? Oh, that's right. Yes, he did. All right.
He did. I did a couple of shows without it. It was like the I kept saying John Oran, who went to cover hockey. That was my big joke.
That was the big joke. All right. Maybe you do need a partner
It's so
on the
popular.
podcast.
Like, and not, I really do appreciate everyone listening. It wasn't Mike and the Mad Dog, though. I mean, he was. I mean, it's nice that everyone. I need Russo to say that. Listen,
Yeah.
he wasn't Mike
Oh,
and the
he
Mad
would
Dog.
say it too. He would
Yeah, he
say
would
it
say
too.
it.
That's for
And
sure.
they had a little, dinky podcast. A couple people
Right.
listen in the industry.
He would say it. That's for sure. All right, Andrew, appreciate it. Be well, and
Jimmy.
we'll be reading you at The Athletic. Take care.
Thank you.
All right. All right, joining me now, as he does every week for our Traina Thoughts segment from WFAN Radio in New York, SNY TV in New York, my buddy Sal Licata. Sal, how's it going?
Great. How are you?
I'm hanging in there.
Is something wrong or what? What are you getting overcharged these days at the diners again?
I've had no bad restaurant issues this week. I'm trying to think. Did I go to a restaurant this week? That's the question. Maybe that's why I didn't. I think the only places I ate at this weekend and week were probably diners. So there was no issue with these sneaky charges of grated cheese and sanitary inspection. So I think we're good. Although the diner prices have gone crazy.
You sent me that tweet that I guess a listener took note of all the different spots after hearing you talk about it and complain about it, which I found fascinating, that all these different charges are coming from everywhere. It's ridiculous.
Right. We will, I'll get into that next week. I saved that for next week.
Okay.
Just because I didn't prepare enough for this one. So.
Okay. Yeah.
Wait, I'm trying to think now. I'm thinking about this, and I feel like there was an incident I had, I don't know, at a diner, but I think we're good. It's just, the prices I do think it's interesting because I've been complaining about the prices for a long time, and I feel like people now are finally catching on to like the food prices. It's, crazy.
You brought awareness to some of this stuff.
Well, I don't know about that. I wouldn't go that far.
You are to diner overcharges what Stephen A. Smith is to female media members.
I mean, let's see if I can. I don't even know if I have a comeback for that. I don't even want to. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
I'm not saying anything. I just,
I will say that I want to be clear. The diners are still the best establishment to go to. They don't pull the bullshit. They give you a ton of food. I feel like it's the restaurant that's trying to be highfalutin that is pulling the nonsense. Diners are still the best.
Right. I feel like I haven't been in a while, but.
Now, you moved to Jersey. You haven't scoped out the diner situation there?
Not yet. Not a diner, no. We've been to a couple of spots, in the area that we're looking forward to, exploring more, but. Are you in the infancy here? It's only a couple months.
Yeah. I know you don't want to say where you live, and we won't do that, but are you anywhere near the famous restaurant in the last episode of The Sopranos with the onion rings? Halston's, I believe. Do you know if that, that's a place if I was in Jersey. I don't know what part it's in, but that would be a place that would be near the top of my list.
Me neither. I forget, but I promise you this. If you, and we got to schedule a day, maybe you come out and see the house and hang out for a little bit. Maybe we'll try to go down. If it is far, it's I wouldn't think it's more than a half hour, an hour, I wouldn't think. But
all right.
Yeah.
You haven't had anyone stalk you at your new house yet like they did at your old house?
Not yet. Knock on wood. Not yet.
That's too funny. I feel like with the NBA being on a ridiculous break, the NFL has calmed down. Very, very slow time right now for sports, which I actually like. How do you feel about it? Well, your baseball team you can't watch. Mine is must watch every night too.
The Mets are brutal. The Yankees are going to carry New York sports through the summer here. But the offseason stuff, we just had the Rangers get eliminated, which sucked. And now it's after having that fun Knicks Rangers ride for a couple of months, with a playoff game every night. Now it's all right. Well, there's baseball, and the Mets are awful, as you said, 10 games under 500. The intrigue there is going to be what they do at the deadline. The Yankees are fun to watch. It is a little bit of a letdown, but I personally don't mind it as we get into the summer, where people start taking this is kind of the calm before the storm now.
Right. I agree. That is true. The Mets will actually be more interesting than anyone for a little while because of the trade deadline. You should get a lot of mileage.
Yeah.
Out of that.
The problem, and this has been the case for the majority of years outside last season, the Yankees are generally so good that they're not a story until October. Now, it's different this year with Soto and Judge, where it's become, must watch and exciting, but ultimately they're not going to be judged until October. And the Mets are so bad that they're not a story until the trade deadline. So,
as a Yankee fan, here's where I would push back a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
This version is more fun than any of the recent versions because of Soto and Judge. Now, as a Yankee fan, the fear is at some point I feel like Aaron Judge is going to get hurt and then everything goes out the window. But for these nights, when you have Soto and Judge in the lineup together, it's different than the past few years because there is the, that cliche about, you don't get up to go get a drink or go to the bathroom when these guys are at the plate. That's how it is right now. So, this is in past years, sometimes I've struggled with the Yankees, but this year's very fun.
Agreed.
Yeah.
But I do enjoy the down a little bit. It was a great run with the hockey and basketball postseason. Look, if you're into the NBA Finals, fine. I'm not. Once the Knicks get out, I'll watch it a little bit. Same thing with hockey. I'll pay a little attention to it, but once the Rangers are out. But it's nice now to have a little bit of calm and ease of baseball in the summer before the storm hits in September, where we have, the football season and the baseball postseason. And this year, the Yankees being back in it is going to be special for us, at least in New York.
This will be a good time to tell you that I will definitely be betting the Dallas Mavericks in the series as a healthy underdog. Yeah,
they're a big dog, so you get a good price on that.
Yeah, you get a good price, and I'm not convinced that the Celtics are a lock to win it. The Celtics are minus 210. The Mavericks are plus 175. I think that's great value with the way Luka and Kyrie are playing.
So that keeps you interested too. You have that going throughout the series.
Yeah, I'll watch every minute of the NBA Finals. I'll be locked in on. I did see too. There's two things I'm going to watch that are going to come out that I'm looking forward to. One, I think you have no interest in, which will be there's a Roger Federer doc coming that I think is going to be. It's about his last 12 days as a tennis player. So it's like a specific, which I like that it's topical in that it's got a specific, the last 12 days.
Where is that airing?
I believe Netflix. But see, that's it. Like, I never even think like, where's that airing? Because then I when it's time to no, it's going to be on Amazon Prime.
Okay.
Federer 12 final days. It's on Amazon Prime and it comes out, I think, June 13th. So that's next week.
And how many episodes of that?
3, I believe.
Okay. Yeah, I'd be into that. I love Federer. He was my favorite tennis player ever.
And then there is a show that's going to be on FX, which you have to watch through Hulu, on Donald Sterling and the Clippers. I'm going to be all in on that. I love those shows that recreate nonsense, and half of it's like when they did Tommy and Pamela Lee, they did the OJ trial, those FX ones. I always get into those. So that I'm looking forward to as well.
And the only way to watch is through Hulu?
I believe so.
Okay, that's annoying, but whatever.
Well, you don't have it?
I don't believe that I do, no.
That's interesting. Do you have the Disney Channel?
Yes.
The Disney, because, I figured you had Disney for your daughter.
Separate, there is a bundle.
Right, because there's a bundle of Disney, Hulu, and ESPN for $13 a month.
I'm in the process still of figuring out what my next move is going to be, and I got to get it cleared up obviously before football season here. So I'm thinking of making a switch and then going streaming service only, but I got to figure out how I'm going to get access to everything that I want. So I'm in that process still, but no Hulu right.
So this Clipper show, this is what I'm into about it. You know who plays Donald Sterling?
Who?
Ed O'Neill from Modern Family and Married with Children.
Yeah, okay.
So this is 6 episodes clipped. So,
okay. I'm into that.
Yeah, so those are that's good stuff for the summer. I'm into
and then you get the special version of Hard Knocks I'm looking forward to with the Giants July 1st, I think, or 2nd, somewhere around there.
Yeah, you're a way bigger Hard Knocks guy than me. To me,
no, but this is a different one.
I know.
Plus, it's the Giants. So for me
Right.
in New York, like that's a must-watch.
Well, the Giants will have the off-season Hard Knocks, and then the Bears will have the one in August. And I have to say, like, the Hard Knocks stopped doing it for me a long time ago.
You finished the 90s Yankees thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I finally finished it. I'm with you. I thought it was a little overrated. Could have been done better.
It was very like, here's a topic, and then we don't discuss the topic. That's right. I still would like to know. I would like someone to interview the parents of the girl who let Mel Hall move into the bedroom. That's what I want. That was my biggest takeaway from that whole thing. It was nothing about the Yankees. Is that Mel Hall, who was on the New York Yankees, dated a 15-year-old who was in high school, and the parents said, "We're moving out of our bedroom. You and Mel take the bedroom."
Yeah, that's weird.
The doc gives you nothing on the parents. That's ridiculous. You have to give me something about the parents. The woman was there talking about all the shit that Mel Hall did to her, and rightfully so. You don't ask one, okay, well, what about your parents?
Yeah.
That
weird.
I couldn't get past that. It's hard for me to get these psychotic parents are doing that, and then you want me to like listen about Buck Showalter. It was hard. It was hard to transition, I thought, from that disgusting and disturbing story. All right, I didn't have a million topics. I thought we'd read some reviews. Got some good ones off the ones that we read the last time. So these will be like the May reviews because we did the April ones. All right. Here we go. This is from Nick Coates. Sal, I am with you in the doghouse for taking the L on Mother's Day. But I must mention that when I was growing up, my dad used the same, "Well, you're not my mother" on Mother's Day. 3 years later, they were divorced after 20 years of marriage. Flowers go a long way. Let your daughter pick them up and have some fun with that. My boys love picking out flowers for their mom. I love the pod, especially Traina Thoughts. Keep it up.
Next year will be the year that we make amends for this year's Mother's Day gone awry.
Is it fair to say, is it safe to say that after this year, you will never say to your wife again, "You're not my mother" on Mother's Day?
You never say never, Jimmy. But yeah, I would say that that's probably a strong. I think we're in a good spot right now. I've taken some accountability. We had a nice anniversary. It kind of made up for the Mother's Day, I would say. So we're in a good spot. And next year, you could make mistakes. Let this be a lesson to all of you. You can make mistakes as long as you learn from them. I've learned. But
you just admitted you're not learning from it because you said you still may never. You may use that line again. You just contradicted your whole.
Let's hope I don't have to.
All right, now we have a review here from Doc Lou in Iowa, who last sent in a review saying he didn't like you in the Traina Thoughts segment.
Okay.
So he says, "Much respect. I have to respect how you read my complaint about Sal's family issues and went right into asking about Mother's Day. Your comment about the Dolphins playing in cold places." 2 years ago on a snow game in Buffalo, they should have won. It was a great night game. Because when I had Mike North on, I said something about the Dolphins late in the season when they're in cold weather. So, I don't know. I stand by my statement, but okay. Love the pod. This is Rick, CVB, HGF. The NFL scheduler was great. Look forward to it next year. His name is Mike North. So, let's try to remember the guy's name a little bit. Mike North. All right. KJTV Traveler. I work in sports television and never knew how much information I was missing out on before I found this podcast. Lots of great guests, interesting insights, and up-to-date information. Being a New Yorker, I love the Traina Thoughts segment and your conversations with Sal. That is the only knock on the podcast I hear from others in my field. I grew up on Long Island, and you sometimes make me nostalgic, such as with the many mentions of Maureen's Kitchen. Please keep it up. So here's the thing. When you have the egos we have being in this business, as soon as that guy says, "I love the Train of Thoughts segments and your conversation with Sal," parentheses, that is the only knock on the podcast I hear from others in my field. Meaning there are people in the television business who do not like this segment and don't like me talking to you. That's all I can focus on now.
Right. And what does hearing that make you want to say? Because I have an answer, but I might reserve it, but I'd be curious to how does that make you? What do you want to say to that?
Don't listen. What else am I going to say?
By the way, like, it's one thing if they say you tell them don't listen to the radio because whatever, then you have to shut the whole show off. In this particular podcast, you could still listen to the entire podcast, get everything you like, and then tune out for the segment if that's your thing. Right. Some people like this segment, and maybe they don't want to hear a guest. Whatever. Like, God, I just don't get it. Here's what I would say: kiss my ass. That's what I would say.
Oh, there it is. I would just say don't listen. You get a little more aggressive.
No, I want you to listen. But I just wanted to kiss my ass. I'd rather.
Oh, see, I'd rather see. No, you want them to listen and then bash you, so then you can say kiss my ass. I'd rather you just not listen and leave me out of the. This guy was very nice. He left a 5-star review. He likes the pod. He said it's the people in his field, which is the television field. So that's these are again, the format of the pod is literally the same every week. Guest in an interview, then Traina Thoughts. So if you don't like the Traina Thoughts, you would think that when I wrap up with the guest, you would then just put your phone down. But I don't know. People love to hate. That's really what it is.
It's just so annoying.
And I can't relate to that. I do not watch things I dislike. I don't listen to things I dislike. I don't follow people on Twitter I dislike. I can't relate to it. I don't understand it. But I am in the minority. People love to consume what they detest.
But I also don't get it. Like, I guess in our case, it's a little different. I'm not really giving opinions here the way that I would on the radio. And I try to understand sometimes the hate that I get on social media from giving an opinion, whether it's on the radio or on social media. But then I realize they're sports fans. You say something negative about their team, they're going to be upset. Like, that's just how it is. I was the same way when I was 15. But
I also think there's a difference between someone bashing you for an opinion and someone bashing you because they don't like you.
Well, how would they know? They don't know you. They don't know
but I'm saying like this review where he says the people in my industry don't like that segment. Okay, but
because it's too New York centric. I feel like we don't even do New York sports.
Like after we talked about the Yankees and the Mets for 10 minutes at the beginning.
Wow.
But again, there's a beautiful thing for podcasts on the phone, whether it's on Apple or Spotify. It's like a 15-second fast forward button. So as soon as you hear me mention the Yankees, hit the 15 seconds and then get to Sal bitching about his family life.
All right.
Like, it's a very easy solution. Speaking of which, as we get back to the reviews, JRich731, Team Sal on Mother's Day. Why are people so material? I can guarantee if it was the other way around, Sal would be fine on Father's Day. A house outweighs flowers that die soon.
Thank you. Thank you. You are correct. I wouldn't give a shit if I didn't get anything on Father's Day. Matter of fact, I don't want anything. And you're right. The house, I mean, come on. That is the greatest reply and review I've ever heard. Thank you.
And just like that, Sal loves the reviews again.
Brilliant.
The last review, kiss my ass. Now, brilliant review. Just like that, the pendulum swings.
Just to clarify, the last review wasn't kiss my ass. It was him to tell his TV coworkers to kiss my ass. Yeah.
And now he's happy with the reviews. All right. Maca3527, multiple reviewee here. Is that helpful to get repeat reviews, Jimmy? I don't know, but keep them coming because we read them on the pod, so it's good content. So even if you've reviewed before, keep reviewing. Give the people what we want. Bring on Sal's wife. Well, we're not going to do that.
Ever?
You think she'd ever want to come on here?
She doesn't know.
But listen, when I'm with you guys in person, I know how to stir the pot. So imagine this. I don't think you'd want that.
You can say next when you come over for the first time, you can be like, oh, I talk to Sal regularly. She might even ask if she knows I do the podcast with you. She just doesn't listen. And you could say sometimes
she knows you do the podcast with me.
That's what I'm saying. She knows.
Right.
But she doesn't know what we talk about.
So
she knows we do the podcast. She does not listen or know what we talk about. But you could say, oh, sometimes it comes up. Would you, care to come on?
I'm not going to be responsible for a breakup. All right. Mark Oliver 10. Love the interviews and the segment with Sal. Not sure what he was thinking with Mother's Day and only cards. Flowers at a minimum. Show is a must listen each week. So now the pendulum swing. It's no matter what the topic is, it's always 50-50. It's crazy.
That's fine. I appreciate their feedback. There is no right or wrong. I could definitely say that I was wrong on a certain extent, but like what I was thinking was that I wanted to just get through the day and survive in advance. help my mother out, go there and do that, check that box, come home, check that box. Here are 2 cards. Look at me. I'm a great father and great husband. And I did not get that response. So lesson learned.
One of the earlier reviewers brought up a good point. In a couple of weeks, a week from Sunday, I believe, is Father's Day. Now, if Father's Day comes and goes and all that's given to you as a card, what's your reaction?
I don't even care. I really don't even care. Matter of fact, I don't even want the card. Save the $5, save the time and hassle. You know why? Because I'm an understanding husband. My wife is working like a maniac with my daughter, taking care of her, taking care of the house. I don't need anything for Father's Day.
Do you want an acknowledgement like when you wake up in the morning, honey, happy Father's Day? You don't even need a happy Father's Day.
No, truth be told, now my father unfortunately is not here anymore, but I'm still in the mindset like Father's Day is about him, not me. Even though I've been a father now for 3 years, I still don't feel like Father's Day is about me.
Okay.
That's just how I honestly feel.
So the day comes and goes, not a word is said, you're fine with it.
She's asked me, what do you want to do for Father's Day? What do you want to do? I'm like, nothing. Like, I really don't want to do anything. I don't care.
Want to watch the Mets lose and be left alone.
Sit by the pool and be left alone. If I really could pick something to do, maybe it'd be some me time, whether it's organizing my stuff, whatever it may be, trying to get settled in the house. That's it. I just wanted some me time.
Got it. All right. I hate country music, and I did not leave my own review because I am nobody hates country music more than me. Listen every week on Android, so I had to figure out how to rate on iPad. Love the interview with Barkley. That was from last week, Sir Chuck. A must listen every week. Love your Sal segment. Keep up the great interviews. So those are the reviews. What's interesting is, I will say this, it was not left as a review, but I did get several tweets from people discussing our ticket conversation from last week who have also had similar problems with a secondary service not giving you your tickets, but you got refunded in full, correct? I think
yes, but again,
it sucks. Yeah.
I know. Well, a lot of people are saying that. Well, you get your money back. Yeah, I mean, otherwise they'd be stealing hundreds of dollars from people. Right. To me, though, the worst part of it is like that should be a given that you get your money back. Right. Yet people think they're going to a game or a show or whatever, and then to have that taken from you, just not. I don't understand how that's even how you a functioning business operating like. I don't understand.
Right. Is you were in my head because this Saturday is the second to last Billy Joel show at Madison Square Garden of the residency. He's going to do shows after this, but the last show is in July. So I'm like, you know what? The last show you're not ever going to be able to get into. You're not going to be able to get a ticket. I said, this show is the second to last, and it's on a Saturday, which is much better because when you're old like me, you can't go out and play on a school night. So I'm like, okay, I could go on a Saturday. But then I'm like, the tickets might be more because it's a Saturday. And when I was looking on StubHub, I'm like, imagine if they don't give me my tickets and I'm sitting there at Madison Square Garden ready to get in, I'll kill somebody. Because I had never had that problem. But the tickets, even for the second to last show, like if you don't, so like MSG, I will never sit in anything but the 100s or the 200s. I'm not sitting any three. And those seats are like a minimum of 400 each. The only tickets that were below, the only tickets that were below 300, I think, were in $300 were in the 300 section and 400 section. So
yeah, I'd like to go one more time. I can't go Saturday, but I'm starting to get. I have not been in years. I don't think I've been since 20.
Well, you only have one more crack at it in July. That could be your Father's Day gift.
I guess I don't even need to. Yeah, I guess I don't even need to see him at the Garden, but I do want to see Billy Joel again in concert somewhere.
I like the Garden for the convenience of it. Like where I am on Long Island. I've said this, like it's much easier for me to go to the Garden than pain in the ass UBS. Barclays is a disaster. You couldn't pay me to go to Newark. Where else do they have concerts around here?
Yeah. Oh, UBS, did you mention that?
Yeah, it's a pain in the ass with the traffic over there on Hempstead Turnpike. Newark, I went to that Prudential Center once. It was horrible.
Nah, it's not bad.
And Barclays is a pain in the ass because, I don't know. MSG is so easy. It's so easy. So, I don't know. I'd like to go Saturday, but
you're talking too much New York.
What can I tell you? What do you want me to talk about? Idaho? I have no basis. I don't know what the good restaurants are in Idaho. I don't know. I haven't had a restaurant screw me in Idaho. But it'll be interesting if someone's listening from Idaho. They'll let me know. Do I have one listener in Idaho? That is the question. All right. What else? I think that's it. We've covered it all. And we'll see you next week, Sal. Hang on.
All right. We'll talk to you later.
All right. All right. My many, many thanks to Andrew Marchand. My thanks to Sal Licata. My thanks to you for listening. If you missed any recent episodes of SI Media with Jimmy Traina, make sure you go into the archives, check them out. Sir Charles Barkley was on the show last week. Kevin Harlan 2 weeks ago. Mike North from the NFL, who makes the NFL schedules, on 3 weeks ago. Katie Nolan 4 weeks ago. So check those out. Make sure you subscribe to SI Media with Jimmy Traina. And if you want to leave a review and rate the pod on Apple, it is much appreciated. And that's it. We'll see you next week. Stay safe and take care.